The Indiana Fever just pulled off something nobody thought was possible. 5 straight wins without their superstar, Caitlin Clark, and Sophie Cunningham just revealed the shocking truth about what's really happening behind closed doors. What she said about Clark's mysterious injury will leave you speechless. But first, if you're a real basketball fan who wants the inside scoop on what's really going down in the WNBA, hit that subscribe button right now because what I'm about to reveal changes everything. Sophie Cunningham thought she'd seen it all in professional basketball. Multiple injuries, teammate drama, playoff pressure. But watching Caitlin Clark deal with a groin injury that comes and goes has been something entirely different. In a bombshell revelation that has the entire league talking, Cunningham finally broke her silence. It's such a weird injury, she admits. And for Indiana Fever fans desperately waiting for their superstar's return, those words carry serious weight that nobody expected. Here's what makes this story even crazier. While Clark has been sidelined with what the team initially called a simple quad strain, the Fever have been on an absolute tear. They just demolished the Seattle Storm 78-74, extending their winning streak to 5 games. That's right, 5 straight wins without the player everyone said they couldn't win without. And at the center of it all, Sophie Cunningham, the enforcer who went from Phoenix castoff to Indiana's most valuable protector. But let's back up for a second because what happened Sunday night in Seattle tells you everything you need to know about this new look Fever team. With 5 minutes left, the Storm went on an 11-0 run. The old Fever would have folded like a cheap suit. Not this team. Not with Sophie Cunningham on the court. She might have only scored 7 points, but her impact went way beyond the stat sheet. This woman has completely transformed the culture in Indianapolis, and the numbers prove it. Think about this. The Fever are now 17-12, sitting 3rd in the Eastern Conference. They're just 2.5 games behind the Liberty. Without Caitlin Clark, let that sink in for a moment. The team everyone said was nothing without their rookie sensation is proving they've got championship DNA, something that hasn't been seen in Indianapolis since the Tamika Catchings era. Stephanie White, who returned to coach the Fever this season, couldn't hide her emotions after the Seattle win. She called it very gussy, and you know what? She's absolutely right. This team has been through situations like this before, but at the end, they just stayed together. The growth from early in the season when they were so inconsistent is remarkable. If teams went on runs like Seattle did, the old Fever would normally lose those games. Not anymore. Here's where it gets really interesting. Aliyah Boston, who's emerged as the team's backbone, dropped some truth bombs after the game. She's been huge for the Fever, really the key to everything. While teams focus on stopping her defensively, she's become a facilitator, finding open players and making the right play every single time. 22 points and 12 rebounds against Phoenix earlier in the week. That's all-star numbers right there. But the real story, it's Sophie Cunningham's journey from trade acquisition to the heart and soul of this team. Remember when the Fever traded for her back in February? Most people thought she was just another role player. Boy, were they wrong. I bring the energy. I bring the feistiness. I'm a little bit sassy, Cunningham said after posting her first double-double of the season. And trust me, that's putting it mildly. Want to know how much Sophie has changed things? Her social media following exploded to over 1 million on both TikTok and Instagram after that viral moment where she defended Caitlin Clark against Connecticut. Yeah, that game where JC Sheldon poked Clark in the eye and Sophie went full bodyguard mode. She grabbed Sheldon, pulled her to the ground, and basically said, "Not on my watch." Both players got ejected, but Sophie had already sent her message loud and clear. Speaking of that Connecticut game, let me paint you the full picture because mainstream media won't tell you this. Marina Mabre straight up shoved Caitlin Clark to the ground after a dead ball. No basketball play, just a cheap shot. And what did the refs do? They let Mabry stay in the game with just a technical foul. Meanwhile, Sophie gets ejected for protecting her teammate. The WNBA later admitted the refs screwed up and upgraded Mabry's technical to a flagrant 2, but the damage was done. This is where things get spicy. Sophie didn't just let it slide. She went on TikTok and called out the refs directly, posted a video lip-syncing to Sabrina Carpenter with the caption at some refs and the lyrics saying "stupid" or "is it slow" or maybe "useless." The video got 1.3 million views, and the WNBA fined her $500. Her response? Pure Sophie Cunningham. She tweeted, "I don't know why this is funny to me. Like, okay, you got it, bud, because there's not more important things to be worried about with our league right now. But here's the thing nobody's talking about. This referee situation isn't just about one game or one player. Stephanie White has been fined multiple times for calling out what she describes as egregious officiating. After the Liberty game where Natasha Cloud clearly fouled Clark on the final possession with no call, White went off. "The disrespect right now for our team has been pretty unbelievable," she said, and she's got the numbers to back it up. A minus 31 free throw discrepancy over 4 games. That's not just bad luck, folks. Now let's talk about what Sophie revealed about Caitlyn's injury, because this is where it gets really concerning. Initially, the team said Clark had a left quad strain and would be out for a minimum of 2 weeks. But Sophie's recent comments paint a different picture. She was grabbing her right groin during the dying seconds of the Connecticut game back in July. That's right, this injury has been nagging her for months, not weeks. If you want to see more exclusive WNBA content and insider information like this, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, what's coming next season is gonna blow your mind. Here's what makes Sophie's revelation so significant. A groin injury that comes and goes isn't just painful, it's unpredictable. One day you feel fine, the next day you can barely walk. For a player like Clark, who relies on her explosiveness and ability to change direction, this type of injury is a nightmare. And the fact that it's been going on since July, that changes everything about how we view the Fever's season. But instead of making excuses, this team has rallied in ways nobody expected. Kelsey Mitchell stepped up huge against Seattle, even though she was having an off-scoring night. She facilitated for the team offensively down the stretch, showing that everyone has something to give even if their scoring isn't there. That's championship mentality right there. Want to hear something crazy? The Fever won the Commissioner's Cup on July 1st without Caitlin Clark. They beat Minnesota 74-59 at Target Center, claiming the mid-season trophy and its $500,000 prize pot. Clark was out with the groin injury that Sophie now says is such a weird injury, but they didn't just win, they dominated. That's when everyone should have realized this team was different. The addition of veterans like Natasha Howard and DeWanna Bonner has been huge. Howard is a 3-time WNBA champion who knows what it takes to win at the highest level. She scored 21 points against Seattle, showing why championship experience matters. When she talked about the team's growth, she didn't mince words. While we don't like injuries, sometimes it can be a blessing in disguise because everybody else finds themselves. Think about what that means. Without Clark dominating the ball, players like Ari McDonald have emerged. She scored a career-high 27 points against Phoenix. Lexi Hull has become a defensive stopper. Sydney Colson, who won 2 championships with Las Vegas, brings that winning mentality off the bench. This isn't just a one-player team anymore, but let's be real about the elephant in the room. The WNBA has a referee problem, and the Fever are Exhibit A. When even broadcasters like Debbie Antonelli are calling out the officiating during games, you know it's bad. During one game against Atlanta, there were 17 fouls called in the first half alone, plus 3 coaches' challenges that took forever. The flow of the game was completely disrupted, and it's not just about the calls they make, it's about the calls they don't make. When Nia Coffey dove into DeWanna Bonner's legs chasing a loose ball, no whistle. When teams grab and hold Boston in the post, no whistle. But let a Fever player breathe on someone the wrong way? Tweet, that's a foul. The inconsistency is maddening. Sophie Cunningham isn't having it anymore. After years of watching star players get abused with no protection, she's taken matters into her own hands. During that Connecticut game, it was just part of the game, she said. I think the refs had a lot to do with that. It was a buildup for a couple years now of them just not protecting the star player of the WNBA. At the end of the day, I'm going to protect my teammates. That's what I do. And protect them, she has. Since joining the Fever, Sophie has become the enforcer every championship team needs. She's the one setting hard screens, taking charges, and making sure nobody takes liberties with her teammates. You can see it in how opponents approach the Fever now. They're not as physical, not as aggressive. Why? Because they know Sophie's watching. The transformation has been remarkable. When the Fever traded Nalissa Smith to get Sophie, some people questioned the move. Smith was a former number 2 overall pick, a player with obvious talent, but talent without the right mentality only gets you so far. Sophie brings something you can't measure in stats. She brings that dog in her, that competitive fire that spreads to everyone else. Want proof? Look at the Fever's record since Sophie arrived. Look at how they respond to adversity now. That 11-0 run by Seattle would have buried last year's team. This year, they responded with composure, talked about it, and moved on to the next play. That's not just basketball growth, that's mental toughness, and it starts with players like Sophie setting the tone. Here's something that'll blow your mind. The Fever are doing all this while building a championship culture for the future. They're getting a new $78 million practice facility by 2027, the largest in the WNBA. They hosted the All-Star Game for the first time in franchise history. Caitlin Clark got 1.29 million All-Star votes, breaking her own record from last year. This franchise is on the rise, and Sophie Cunningham is a huge reason why. But back to Caitlyn's injury, because Sophie's comments reveal something concerning. A weird injury that comes and goes suggests this might be more serious than the team is letting on, and groin injuries are notoriously tricky. They can feel fine one day and flare up the next. For a player who relies on quick cuts and explosive movements like Clark, this could be a long-term issue. The fact that Clark returned on June 14th against the Liberty helped the Fever hand the defending champs their first loss of the season, then had to sit out again, shows how unpredictable this injury is. She wants to play. You can see it when she's on the bench, but the medical staff is being cautious, and rightfully so. Rush her back too soon and you risk making it worse. Meanwhile, Sophie keeps speaking truth to power. When asked about people who say Caitlyn isn't the face of the WNBA, her response was legendary. You're literally dumb as F-word if you think that. She has changed our game in the best possible way in every way. Just to be alongside her and relieve some pressure, being able to shoot and spread the court for her to do her thing. That's what makes Sophie special. She's not threatened by Caitlyn's stardom. She embraces it. She talked about how Diana Taurasi took her under her wing in Phoenix, and now she wants to do the same for Caitlyn. When you're trying to do something great, it takes everybody, she said. And that's exactly the mentality this Fever team has adopted. The numbers back it up too. During the 5-game winning streak without Clark, the Fever went 3-1 after the All-Star break. They're beating good teams, not just bottom feeders. The offensive system Stephanie White has installed is perfect for Sophie's skill set. She's shooting 37.8% from 3, playing that 3-and-D role to perfection. But it's not just about the scoring. Sophie's defensive intensity has been a game changer. She can guard multiple positions, switch on screens, and isn't afraid to take a charge. When you watch the Fever play now, there's a different energy. They're not just trying to outscore teams anymore. They're grinding out wins, playing tough defense, making teams uncomfortable. The Seattle game was a perfect example. When the Storm made their run, the old Fever would have panicked, started taking bad shots, playing individual basketball. Not this team. They stayed true to the scout, trusted the offense, and found ways to get stops when they needed them most. That's playoff basketball, folks. That's championship DNA showing itself. And speaking of playoffs, let's talk about what this winning streak means for the Fever's postseason chances. At 17-12, they're not just making the playoffs, they're positioning themselves for home court advantage in the first round. Think about that. A team that hadn't made the playoffs since 2016 is now thinking about hosting a playoff game. The Eastern Conference better be worried too. The Liberty might have the best record, but they're not invincible. The Fever beat them earlier this season with Clark. Imagine what they could do with a healthy Clark and this newfound mental toughness. The Sun, the Fever already showed they're not afraid of Connecticut's physical style. The Dream, please, this isn't the same Fever team from May. Before we wrap this up, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. The insider information I'm getting about next season's moves will absolutely shock you. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming. Here's the bottom line, and this is what makes Sophie's revelation so important. The Fever have discovered something this season that you can't teach. They've discovered that they're more than just Caitlyn Clark's team. They're a unit, a family, a group that fights for each other every single night. Yes, Caitlyn is the superstar, the face of the franchise, the player who sells out arenas. But basketball is a team sport, and the Fever have finally remembered that. Sophie Cunningham embodies everything this transformation represents. From trade throw-in to cultural cornerstone, from Phoenix role player to Indiana's enforcer, from WNBA journeywoman to the player who isn't afraid to call out refs, protect her teammates, and speak truth even when it costs her money and fine. When Caitlyn Clark returns, and she will return, she's not coming back to the same team she left. She's coming back to a team that's battle-tested, mentally tough, and knows how to win without her. That's scary for the rest of the league. A Caitlyn Clark who doesn't have to do everything? A Caitlyn Clark who can trust her teammates in crucial moments? A Caitlyn Clark protected by Sophie Cunningham? Good luck stopping that. The weird injury that Sophie described might have been the best thing that happened to this franchise. Not because anyone wants to see Caitlyn hurt, but because it forced everyone else to step up. It forced the Fever to find their identity beyond just being Caitlyn Clark's team. And what they found was a championship caliber culture that's been missing since Tamika Catchings retired. So what happens next? If the Fever can win 5 straight without Clark, imagine what they'll do when she returns. The chemistry they've built, the confidence they've gained, the mental toughness they've developed, it's all going to make them more dangerous. Add in a healthy Caitlyn Clark to this mix, that's not just a playoff team. That's a championship contender. The rest of the WNBA better take notice. The Indiana Fever aren't just back, they're here to stay. And with Sophie Cunningham leading the charge as their enforcer, protector, and truth teller, they're not backing down from anybody. Not the refs, not the league office, not opposing teams trying to rough up their stars. This is a new era in Indianapolis, and it's about time. The revelation about Caitlyn's weird injury might worry some fans, but it shouldn't. This team has proven they can win without her. They've proven they have the depth, the talent, and most importantly, the mentality to compete with anyone. When Clark returns, she's not saving this team. She's joining a team that's already saved itself. That's the real story here. That's what Sophie Cunningham's confession reveals. The Indiana Fever have grown up, they've matured, they've become a real team, and the rest of the WNBA should be terrified. Thanks for watching, and remember, if you want the inside scoop on everything WNBA, hit that subscribe button and notification bell right now. The revelations coming next week about potential trades will absolutely blow your mind. Until next time, this is your source for the truth they don't want you to know. Peace out.